okei, tere hommikust kõigile. Me alustame siis tänase üritusega ja kuna saalis on igasuguse keelega inimesi, siis ma ütlen Eesti inimestele tere praegu eesti keeles ja me läheme inglise keele peale üle ja ma arvan, et valdav osa tänasest üritusest on inglise keeles. Nii et me siis jätkan. So, good morning everyone. Welcome to Tallinn, who's not from Tallinn. I see people here who have come from other countries as well. My name is Henrik Ronema. I'm a tech journalist and here I've been asked to moderate this event today and just keep the ball rolling. So welcome again to the monthly progress report of the tunnel project. And today, for the first time, we will discuss the Tallinn station part of the project. So Peter has been here for a number of times, introducing his idea and fighting off people who say this is impossible to do and it should go somewhere else and do something else. But now he's back again, and as I said, we are going, among other things, to discuss the Tallinn station part of the project, for which we have an architect here who has a vision, who has pictures to show you, and we are going to talk about the possible environmental effects and geology and things like that. We will take, since the timetable is quite strict, and at least one of the speakers has to finish exactly on time to be in another place at exactly the right time. So we will take questions later. We have time in the end to take questions. And for media, it is possible to interview at least some of the people who are speaking later. So I will take questions afterwards, and media, if you want one-on-ones or ask questions or have longer discussions, then you can do it afterwards. So that's it from me. It seems like I have an easy job today, and I will ask Peter on stage, as always, wearing red. So welcome.
Hey, thank you. Well, yeah, maybe I'll use a mic today for a change. Probably we can do without, but I don't mind having a mic. Yeah, so it's again great to be back, and again monthly update on like where we're at with our little project. And as we have many new faces here, we thought I will just do like a quick run through of what we're like actually up to with the tunnel and the station areas and all of that, and also a bit of an update what we've been up to since we're here last. We're here like actually the monthly update was 2nd of December, if I remember correctly, so ages ago, last year. But yeah, anyway, so let's see here. So first of all, always starting with one of the reasons we're doing this. So we're preparing for much faster growth here in our part of the world. So leveraging the fact that we have a superior geographic location. So if you look at Helsinki and Tallinn, we happen to be the closest neighbor of China, India and Japan in Europe. And of course this is something that we see every day in Helsinki, and I think also actually taking the ferry over, we see the same thing, that the ferry is like half full with tourists from Asia and China in particular. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. We can expect to see much more of that. But we have the best connectivity to Asia. So again, more flights to Japan, China, and okay, we only have one to India right now in Helsinki, but they're adding several new direct connections, so we can expect that growth to continue. So yeah, great geographic location. And then some other things that we can offer in our part of the world. So it's not just tourists, but we actually have a pretty good setup. So again, just looking at the northern side or the northern shore of the Bay Area, namely Finland. So we have the best education on the planet. We also happen to be the happiest nation. And then I always hear from my Estonian friends that there's no way that you Finns can be the happiest nation on the planet. And then I always say that actually happiest means that we are happier than the others. It doesn't mean that we're like perfect or anything like that. It just means that the others are worse. But yes, of course we're very proud of the fact that we are the happiest nation on the planet. And then we also have clean air, and this is something that, I mean, if you go to Delhi this time of the year, it's always like bad when you can see the air that you're breathing. Then you know that there's probably like it's not healthy. And actually, just taking Delhi as an example, I mean, if you live in Delhi, you actually and just breathe the air outside. It's the same effect as smoking 2 packs of cigarettes every day. And yeah, all of us know that smoking 2 packs of cigarettes is probably not like a good idea. So yeah, we can offer a very good like healthy environment. And I think that this slide is very important because we did our little roadshow for the investors in September, October, and what was very interesting that in every meeting, and been using this one meeting we had in Shanghai with one of the family offices, we spent 2 hours on this particular slide, and then like 50 minutes discussing you know, the tunnel and all of that, but really the values and like why. And I think what is important with this is that what we are actually doing, yes, we're building the tunnel, but what we are doing is we're promoting this Helsinki-Tallinn metropolitan area as the best place to raise a family, build a business, and to study. So it's not just about the tunnel, it really is about what the tunnel enables us to do. And I'm not going to go into too much on that side today, but what we're seeing now, a lot of interest from families in China and India to actually move here because of the education. If you ask Chinese families what's most important for them, it's actually the education of the children. So they're looking for like where can they get the best education, and that of course happens to be here. Another big trend that we've been seeing already for quite a while is that, you know, and you've probably been following the Huawei discussion. So a lot of Chinese companies now realize that it would be like pretty cool if they were European companies. So why don't we keep the R&D, you know, back in China, in Beijing, Shanghai, and we set up the headquarters outside, so they become European companies. And that's something that we're going to see a lot more of. So they're going to set up their headquarters here in like the Helsinki-Tallinn area, and that's again, you know, doing this kind of like flip that we've been seeing a lot of companies doing, you know, going to Silicon Valley or like somewhere and setting up the headquarters there, and then R&D is in Finland or Estonia. But now we're going to see that happen by the Asian companies, and they're actually setting up the HQ here, which is, you know, pretty cool. And then another thing, also I said that it's, you know, best place for families, best place to build a business, best place to study. So we're seeing now in Finland we're going to bring in 150,000 foreign university students over the next few years, 30,000 to Estonia. And this is again to just like meet the talent gap, or fill the talent gap that we have. So again, yes, the tunnel is important to cope with this future growth, but it's just a tunnel. I mean, we're just preparing for this growth that we're seeing like all over the place. And then here, you know, just a recap of what we're doing. We're creating gravity. We're creating massive like talent density, and always great to be here in Estonia because I mean 1.3 million people, 4 unicorns. It's pretty cool. That's better than anywhere else in the world. So, you know, continue whatever you're doing. We want to see many more of those. And of course, we've been doing kind of like okay in Finland as well. So I think that this part of the world can really, you know, show the way forward for, you know, Silicon Valley and all of that. And we are, you know, of course, what we're doing here, you know, you have the Bay Area there on the west coast of the US, and then Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou area, they have the greater Bay Area, but we're building the finest Bay Area. So, you know, obviously, you know, not the greatest or you know, like the old Bay Area in the US, but the finest Bay Area. So that's what we're doing. And, you know, enabling the future growth, we are also looking at the affordable housing. So we don't want to become like Stockholm or Silicon Valley, where you can't attract your talent because you can't afford to live there. So we need to also make sure that we address that. And that's one thing that we'll discuss today, the fact that we are designing the station areas, here included, to accommodate 50,000 new people living in all the station areas. So along the tunnel we'll have 200,000 new people, living in this FinEst Bay area. And we're also creating a university platform, so attracting new global international universities to the area. The first one that is moving in is Tongji University from Shanghai, one of the top universities in China, best design school in China. So they're setting up their European campus in Otaniemi next to Aalto University. But we're also in talks about attracting new universities here to Ylemiste area, to the island, and to the Aviapolis, or the airport area in Helsinki. So 4 station areas, and I'm going to run through this really quickly because we're going to talk more about like Ylemiste today, but just to give you an idea what we're doing with the station areas. So here is the airport in Helsinki, 50,000 people, and this is becoming the major mobility hub of Finland, so connectivity to Helsinki and Tallinn, and then Turku, Tampere, St. Petersburg, so that's something that we're doing there. And yeah, of course, all of these station areas are designed so that they're walkable and cyclable. Then we have the Otakeila, so Otaniemi, Keilaniemi area, home of Aalto University, and soon Tongji University. Again, 50,000 people, 20% students. Actually, here we'll have probably a bit more, like 30% students, because we already have Aalto and all of that there. But again, co-living, co-working, cyclable, walkable. Then the island station, again, 50,000 people and living, working on the island. And it's between 3 and 5 square kilometers in size, so pretty good size. And it's all self-sustained as far as energy and food and everything. So yeah, it's a pretty significant development. 10,000 hotel rooms, big convention center, maybe some other entertainment as well. And that's one of the areas that's been attracting a lot of interest. And we spent Friday and the weekend in Dubai, so what we're doing here is pretty small scale compared to what they've done there over the last 10 years. Yeah, maybe one thing on the island also, which is kind of interesting, that of course we have all the normal official languages, but we're also going to have Mandarin, so we'll have Chinese as one of the official languages, and for obvious reasons. So we expect to attract quite a significant chunk of Chinese-speaking population for this one as well. And yeah, then mention that it's energy and food self-sufficient, no cars, so there's no need for cars on the island, obviously, and it's all walkable, cyclable, and yeah, 10,000 hotel rooms, just because of the fact that we have huge shortage of hotel rooms both in Helsinki and Tallinn, and fantastic geographic location, 10 minutes from both airport terminals. And obviously what happens when we're now building this, that the Helsinki and Tallinn airport become one and the same, so we have 20 minutes end to end, so you get on train in Helsinki at the airport, 20 minutes later you're here in Ylemiste at the airport. So basically one airport, 2 terminals, just happen to be separated by a bit of water. A much faster connection than you have between terminals in, for example, Heathrow or Frankfurt. So much more efficient, but that's what you'd expect this part of the world anyway. Then just quick update on the funding and what we're doing there. So the day after we were here last time, we announced the first 100 million euros in funding. So we're on track. If you look at kind of our schedule here, actually a bit ahead of schedule even. So we raised that first 100 million kind of seed investment for the tunnel from ARJ Group in Dubai. And then we basically have a very clear schedule for what we need to do. This is the equity, so 30% of the funding will be equity, so investment into the company building the tunnel, and then we will raise 70% as loans. And also if you were, let's say, interested in kind of the structure of that funding, so we're looking at having half of the funding here locally from local pension funds, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Europe, and then rest of it from Asia, most likely from China. So that's kind of the plan there. Okay, then just some highlights of what we've been up to since we last met. Yeah, we met with Jyri Ratas, your Prime Minister, on 8th of January, and also with Kadri Simpson, so your Infrastructure Minister, briefed them on the progress on the funding, and we actually had with us CREC, China Railway Engineering Company, so a potential partner, world's biggest construction company, 300,000 people, 130 billion in revenue. So we had President Chen. He's actually one of the guys in the picture there. Maybe one highlight of that meeting, that then your Prime Minister Economic Advisor actually asked us that, okay, you have a very aggressive schedule. You plan to complete the tunnel construction in just 4 years after getting all the permits and everything in place. And then isn't that very aggressive and difficult? So then President Chen from CREC said that of course it is a very aggressive schedule. It's very ambitious. Building 103 kilometers of tunnel between Helsinki airport and Ülemiste. But on the other hand, CREC has built 18,000 kilometers of railway tunnel only in China. So building 100 kilometers more is no big deal. So it's totally doable. And I think that is also very important to keep in mind that yes, we're building the longest railroad tunnel here, but it's not kind of like a massive undertaking, and technically, okay, maybe not trivial, but it is kind of like very well understood what we need to do here. So it's not like we're doing, flying a rocket to Mars or something. So it's actually like fairly straightforward. Then some of the other things, attracting some Chinese companies here, and then been briefing, people on the Finnish side. We also have the tunnel vodka that you can see in the pictures of good product placement there. It's available at Superalko, so you should go and check it out. I think we're the only infrastructure project that has branded, merchandise. So in this case, fantastic vodka made by Moe here in Tallinn and bottled then in Helsinki. So great example of what Finns and Estonians can do together when we start doing and start working together. This is actually from last night, so we were at the opening of the Enterprise Estonia offices in Dubai. And okay, you have Jüri Ratas there, and then you have the Minister of Trade of Dubai, and me obviously. And then this is Shahab Yuma, is the guy in the traditional Arabic dress. So he is the chairman of ARJ Group, so our first investor, and it was very good for him to meet with Prime Minister and also see that we're serious about this project on both sides. And we invited him to come and visit Estonia. We're actually setting up, or he and his company, they are setting up ARJ Holding Europe, and that's actually going to be an Estonian company. So that's again because you have pretty good, or actually really good processes in place in Estonia. So they picked Estonia over Finland for having the ARJ Holding subsidiary. So that's pretty good news, I think. And anyway, we had very good discussions, and right now we're also making very good progress on the next round of funding, which is significantly bigger. But now with the first 100 million that we raised from ARJ Group, we are able to do the detailed design, and we can start construction of the tunnel stations. So this is something that we're now looking at the airport station in Finland, and then obviously today we're talking about the Ülemiste station here, because we know that those are kind of like the end stations. Then we have the Otakela and the island station. Those we can start a bit later, but ideally we would like to do the more detailed design and plans for the stations ASAP, and then the plan is to actually start building the station areas already this year. So that's where we're kind of at. So the first 100 million will be used for the more detailed planning that we have Jens and Pöyry doing right now, and then starting kind of construction of the station areas. So kind of so far so good. I mean, it's already February, so we got some stuff done, but I think that we're very much on track, and in some areas even kind of like ahead of our own schedule. So the plan is still to have the trains running the 24th of December 2024, so I don't see any reason why we wouldn't like hit that. And now we just hope that the Rail Baltic guys get their act together and deliver as well, so then we can get all the way to Berlin. But we'll see. Hopefully that gets on track as well. Yeah, I don't know if you have like time for questions and comments. Probably makes sense that you do that now, and then we'll jump to the next part of the day. But yeah, any questions, any comments? Yes.
Andres Wiener, freelancer. What kind of railway polygon you will choose? 1520 or?
We will use Euro standard for that. Let's say the current plan is to have Euro standard in the tunnel, and then of course Rail Baltica is using the same. So that's again because it's easier to get the kind of like trains, the equipment, and we also have then planned for the connectivity on the Finnish side to upgrade our like network, you know, going to Turku and Tampere. But that is just like here in Estonia, we have elections in April, and I think that there's you know, we'll see what happens then with kind of like the plans for like the rest of the network. We have also like done some designs for Helsinki Airport to St. Petersburg in hour 22 minutes in the future. So we're also looking at that kind of thing, and then yeah, then of course some initial like thoughts about the Arctic Railway all the way up to Kirkenes, but that's. We don't have like detailed plans for that yet, but yes, Euro standard for the tracks is the current plan. But we can put in both if that kind of like makes sense. You have to change somewhere, so can't like avoid that. Yeah. More questions? Yes.
Do you have environmental psychologists in the design, the decision-making process?
So if we have psychologists. No, we're just like psycho ourselves. We haven't involved psychologists yet, but that's probably like a good idea. And I think that so probably you can help us with that. Okay, very good, very good. So yeah, excellent. So yeah, but I think what is very important. Okay, we haven't thought about like the psychology and all that, but one thing that is super important for us is the overall like experience. So we have done a lot of studies. I mean, like looking at the metro in Helsinki, and we measured kind of like the time it takes to go through, and you know, like everything. So we really want to make sure that we provide a very, very smooth experience. And actually, one thing that we did same day we announced kind of like the first 100 million in funding. We also announced that we have ticketing live, so you can now buy, you know, the tickets for the first trains, and it's like 50 euro one way, 100 euros you know, return ticket, and then we have a special deal on like an annual pass for 1,000 euros. But the main reason why we wanted to make the ticketing live is not, okay, yes, we love selling tickets, but the most important thing is that we now have 5 years to perfect the process, you know, sort of plane lands, you take elevator down, you get on the train, elevator up, and you're in Tallinn. So we don't want to have, you know, standing in line 30 minutes to get on a 20-minute train ride, because that kind of like, you know, not a good idea. So what we have been doing now, we've looked at creating a totally digital, totally like token, you know, and ticketless system. So basing it on face recognition. We have also been in talks now about digitalizing the whole Schengen visa process. So that is something that, again, we can't decide in Finland or Estonia alone. We need to talk to all these other Schengen countries, and not all of them are like super digital, as we all know. So what we want to do there is try to now also, I mean, we're running Europe end of the year, like you did, you know, last year. So hopefully we can use that to also impact the agenda a little bit and get these kind of like visa processes and all that streamlined. So I think that is something that is very important. I mean, not just for the tunnel, but in general. And example of how we're doing things. We're doing many, many things in parallel, not just, okay, let's build this and let's build, but the reason why we can complete the tunnel in like this very aggressive kind of time frame is that we're doing many, many things in parallel. And that's something that I think is important, and not what, you know, everybody's used to. So we're constantly being told that it's impossible, but obviously, you know, impossible is nothing. So yeah.
Okay.
One more question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to interrupt.
Yes, one more, and then we're done. Yeah.
Thank you. This is super interesting. I'm here first time, and nowadays you are reading a lot about hyperloops.
Yeah.
So they are all over. And just a question, I'm not a technical person, but
Yeah.
while you're talking about railways and stuff like that, it means dream impossible.
Yeah, but the reason, and like just on Hyperloop, so what I always say is that some of us have to live in like reality and in the real world. So, so you know,
That's you.
so we are like being realistic. So if you look at Hyperloop, I mean, it's totally unrealistic that Hyperloop would be live moving people in 24. I mean, that's
Not working system.
it's just like there's no working system, and we all know that, I mean, to get something certified to move like real people, not likely. And okay, it might happen in some random, not so like democratic country where, you know, rules and regulations are made by like one person. So yeah, maybe, but we live in countries where, I mean, we're not always super fast in Finland or Estonia because democracy and like stuff. But that's why I don't think that Hyperloop is realistic in our time frame. But we are building 2 tunnel pipes, 17.4 meter in diameter, so we can put in Hyperloop or like whatever new technology that comes along. But for us, it doesn't make any sense to introduce kind of like technology risk that, okay, we're going to build Hyperloop, and then it's like, oh, it didn't quite work, and then we're like there in 2035 and it still doesn't work, you know. So it's yeah, we'll see what happens with Hyperloop, but right now for us we're using proven, you know, fast rail. We're not even kind of like looking at necessarily putting in like maglev or something like that, but it's just like normal fast rail, been used in Japan since 1964. China has built tens of thousands of kilometers last 10 years. So it's there, it works, it's no like technology risk. So that's kind of like, again, yeah, we try to live in the real world. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but yeah, so thanks, and yeah, we'll continue the rest of the program. So.
Okay, thank you. And now we are moving to the stations. Ludovico, you're there. So Ludovico Lombardi from Zaha Lead Architects will come and show you pictures of stations. And hopefully something else.
Okay, so thanks a lot for having me here. Of course, it's a great.
It's on.
Okay, can you hear me better? Okay, so of course it's really great to be here to see what is being planned, what are the ideas about the future, and also to understand how we can contribute with our expertise into such an amazing opportunity. So, of course, I'll give you a bit of an introduction of what we do, where we are, but what is also interesting is that we're a very international practice, and that somehow it's something that is to be reflected in what we design, but also in the project that you're planning to have. We're active all over the world. We have a few offices around, headquarters in London, but we have experience and offices in Beijing, Hong Kong, New York, and of course, when I say that is that our portfolio is yet still quite diversified in terms of typology, and what is interesting is that if you look at it now, most of the projects are a mixed-use project, and actually most of them are transport-oriented development, which means that there is of course an infrastructural components and a mobility aspect to all these new projects that we're building around the world. As I said, I'm going through some references for mainly station projects, but we of course started as a very cultural-oriented practice, so most of our first projects were cultural projects. We're dealing with residential and hospitality, educations and sports, facilities, and of course transport, which is what I'm going to try to show you today, at least in our project. But I'll start with some overall references, I'll go quite fast. This is a cultural project, it's the Maxi Museum. This project is relevant because actually the way that the building is designed, it's all based about how people move and navigate space. So how people experience space when they walk through it, and how that can actually become something that is relevant to the way we design spaces. Another cultural center, completely different environment. And again, this project has a certain aspect that needs to be relevant when we talk about infrastructure and complex project, because when we design something, we always make sure that there is buildability, constructability, budget control, and performance within our design process. So if you look at the way that complex form has been built, it's basically an industrial shed technology of a space frame, metal frame, and all the panels are done off-site. They're all controlled numerically. We help the contractor, the manufacturers, and the client to make sure that singularities are under control, that everything is rationalized, and we can actually implement and control the way it's built on site and the way it's fitting within the schedule and the budget of the project. And in a project like the one you were mentioning before, there is of course a lot of attention to delivery and cost control of the project. Completely on a different aspect, the BMW Central Building. Again, this project is all about flows of different programs coming together. So how do you create a standard building, car manufacturer building, but you make it so that every space, every part of the chain of construction is always visible from every other side of the office. So when you're having lunch, you can see the cars going on top of you. When you're actually working, you can see the painting process on the opposite side. So the idea of visual interface and highly connectivity in every space becomes extremely relevant. Another particular project that we're completing this year in China, it's going to be the tallest atrium ever built, and that's because of a technical constraint. There is an underground tunnel underneath the tower, so the structure has to be split, and that created this design feature. So again, there are always implications about performance, infrastructures that are actually affecting the design. And as you can see, it is almost due to be completed. We also invest a lot in technologies based on sustainability. There are different types of sustainability. In this case, what we propose for this project is something that deals with rain collection, especially in this monsoon area. This is in Cambodia. And that is used for cooling system. And of course, we also use technology of timber construction, which is also very relevant, especially in this region. And again, trying to deal with a different type of sustainability. This is about what I call social sustainability. So when you design something, you need to design the immediate purpose of it, but you also need to design the future of it, so the legacy mode. So when we designed the pool in London for the Olympic Games, we had a 17,000 seaters request by the Olympic Committee, but we knew that this building, in order to be efficient after the Olympic, in its legacy mode, needed only 2,000 capacity seats. So in that case, when we designed it, we planned it so that the high capacity mode could be actually transformed into the community pool that now the swimming pool is, and help regenerating the whole surrounding. So this project, which was an infrastructure piece for sports, to a very completely higher standard, became now one of the most attractive community pool in London. And that's because the roof is actually standing on 2 points, and you can attach and detach the glass facade and add extra seating if needed. So if you think about these as when you're planning the projects, you can actually also help the future of the design of the building itself. Another interesting project, I'll go quickly through that, that's about timber, and that's about timber construction. Is going to be the first fully timber cross-laminated stadium ever built. It's planned to get planning application this year, and it's in the UK. And of course, this is a technology we think is going to be relevant to whatever we design. Then if we talk about stations, we have an expertise at different scales. I'll show you some of them. This is 5 different stations in Innsbruck, in Austria. And the whole idea is, of course, not only referencing the nature of the mountains behind it. So you have a very concrete base and sort of very light, reflective glacier cap. And this is valid for the all 5 stations. And as you can see, the whole idea is that the infrastructure piece is recognizable throughout the city. So it's 5 stations with similar design, but they all get contextual once you actually apply them. So one is overground, one is underground, and then there is the M station, which is this one you're seeing now. So again, talking with the context in terms of references, but also trying to make something which becomes a landmark in the city that help people navigate and recognize their position and also the environment around them. Interesting project as well, one of the projects we completed last year, it's a station in Naples, it's a high-speed train station. What I think is relevant about this project is not only the design of it, this is the completed picture, but it's the fact that this station is a bridge before being a station. So it's about connecting the two opposite sides of this railway track, so that people can actually enter the station, walk to the other side without having a ticket, and all the private comfort areas are done at the bridge level, straight into the platform. So this is not only high speed, but it's also commuter train. But it's quite a relevant project when you think about how can an infrastructure become something more than just this functional need. And of course, some of the interiors of the Concourse, all the finished projects. And again, on a completely different scale, Beijing Airport. This is actually happening as we speak. And the design itself is driven by the fact that you have 500 meters between the furthest point to the center, and that's a maximum sort of distance that people feel comfortable to walk with, according to the most recent studies, without having to take a train or some sort of other ways of mobility. So that's what is driven the maximum distribution of the form, but also the natural light. So there is a skylight that is driving you, so the natural light is giving you the directionality, and it's much more intuitive than not having to use signages or to use any other sorts of standard means of constructions and mobility aspects. So again, this is going to be ideally operational next year. It's like 56 million passenger terminal, so we're talking about a completely different scales. And again, we follow up all the way through the implementation of the design, and we are rationalizing and delivering this type of project, because of course we want to be involved at all stages of design. That's some of the recent shots of the construction. That's one of the latest one. So we're literally closing the building as we speak now. Other ways of connecting, of course, we're talking about tunnels, we're talking about stations, but there is also, of course, bridges. This is a competition we won last year, actually a year and a half ago. It's the longest single-span asymmetrical bridge, and it's in Taiwan. And this, again, is going to be on site relatively soon. So there is, of course, an international tandem to actually looking for highly connected mini spaces, how to actually bridge not only differences, but also gap in time and space. And that's something that for us is very relevant when we talk about infrastructures. Other recent projects, this is somehow interesting because when they told us that we had to design a bridge, we wanted to design something more. So again, the infrastructure needs to be, or needs to claim to be something more than just a functional piece. So this bridge is basically a gallery space. So it's a pavilion bridge, as we call it. So there are spaces within the bridge for exhibitions and events that can be used at all times. And if we look about what is happening in closer to the region, of course, we are active in Scandinavia. We have now working on a project in Vasby, which is in between Uppsala and Stockholm. This is, of course, a project that, when we were called on, was a project of infrastructural interest. So we're designing the 2 bridges, which are going to be the new station for the high-speed train going through the north-south or south-north of Sweden. But obviously, this is actually something that the municipality asked us to do in order to be able to bring quality to what you see on the top of the picture, which is a plan for them to redevelop and completely increase 100,000 square meters of programs. So they need to have infrastructures and quality of infrastructure in order to be able to create quality of spaces and expand the city dimension. So of course, those are some of the early sketches. The bridge itself becomes something more, becomes a space for activities and events. We're designing also the bus terminal, which is, again, integrating different means of transportation. Here we're talking about 2-3 means of transportation when we're talking about The tunnel here between Helsinki and Tallinn is of course almost like 7 ways of transportation that are coming together. So there is a completely different type of impact. But in a smaller scale, this could be an interesting reference as well. And of course, we started engaging more and more with underground constructions when we won the 2 metro station and tunnel design in Oslo. So those are new tunnel in Fornebu, which is a peninsula where the old airport used to be located, just south of Oslo. And we submitted 2 different designs, and these 2 designs were basically trying to be completely different, but to be very immediate. So we brought, for each one of the sites, we have 2 different sites, there is 2 entrances. One we call it the urban entrance, one is the landscape entrance, and the other one is the platform tunnel level. So in this case it was about rock formation, glacier vaulted ceilings, and valley crevasses out of erosion of water. And of course, when we plan that, we also need to start planning what is happening on top of it. So that would be the urban entrance with a square. The tunnel itself becomes something which is this kind of very pristine, vaulted, sculpted ceiling. When of course you have vertical means of transportation embedded within the design. And of course, as we said before, when we design something, we always want to make sure that we are able to deliver it and help support the construction of it. So we rationalize all the forms so that we can make sure that there can be control and can be delivered on site. And then the landscape entrance. So when we talk about something which is more of a public space, of course this was in a completely green street, and the whole idea was to articulate on multiple levels, the underground, the overground, and the suspended one, 3 different ways of transportation. You have the bicycle ramp, you have actually the cross connections, and you have a continuous way of going on top of it to actually appreciate the whole landscape around the station itself. So it's again articulating within the design different way of experiences, movements, all the way to the platform. The second station was very different, but I think it's a very interesting way of making it even more diagrammatic. So there is a build context. So in this case, it's a very squarish sort of design, and then there is a landscape entrance. So when we thought about it, we said, okay, what do we do? Why don't we take it very literally? We just say that there is a square and a circle, and we transition in the tunnel the geometries of it. And this becomes the design itself. And the whole idea is that what do you do when you're dealing with an underground space? So we call this project the sky below. So we use the tunnel as basically a mapping system for what is the sky above. So we know how much light, how much colors can affect the mood of the behaviors of people. So especially in Oslo, we actually were interested in seeing what happens if we bring the sky underground. So this works as a sort of mapping of what is happening above. And at the same time, the square and circular give you a clear directionality of where you should go if you want to go to the landscape versus the urban exit. And then not only we can try to do that and actually mimic what is happening outside and map what are the real ideal conditions of the sky above, and we bring it below ground, but we could use also the tunnel to become an intelligent system of showing when the train is arriving, mapping which of the carriages are emptier or more used. And this could become also a device that of course helps dealing with the optimizing infrastructure system itself. We are also very interested in being here because we have been in Tallinn before. We won the master plan for the port of Tallinn a year ago. And I think that when we talk about integrated infrastructure system, of course, we need to make sure that we connect all the pieces together in this new amazing integrated infrastructure hubs. And that also works for the port as well, because this will bring the port even closer to all the other destinations that were mentioned in the previous briefing. In this case, what is interesting is that our aims was to show how we could connect with pedestrian and cycle connectivity. In this case, is the spine that you kind of read on the left images. How we could actually use that to trigger people moving back into the port, to bring the port into the old city and vice versa. So it's all about bringing the public. And the most important things when you deliver such a vision is to try to understand how do you create catalyst I do create points that are punctual intervention that can actually trigger people to be into the new area you're designing. So in this case, try to find who are the activators, try to find who are the explorer people, if it's universities or startups, if it's offices or commercial, and now these can start reappropriating just by allowing public movement inside and increasing that and create opportunities for development. And of course, we are interested in also in working specifically here because we actually started thinking, okay, what happens if when we engage with a competition for the Valokoye port, we call the Innovation Valley, we wanted to create something which was a mixed-use project. So basically understanding already what are the proximity, what are the great opportunities of having a site which is of a mixed-use program, but is very close to the airport, very close to the old town, very close to the harbor as well, but at the same time can be close to Helsinki, can be close to St. Petersburg, can be close to Stockholm. And with the Rail Baltica, with this new idea of the tunnels, this could become really something of a prime location that is envied by a lot of other European cities. When airports are 2-3 hours away, when stations are disconnected, when you have to continuously change and interface with different transportation in a not coherent way. So of course we mapped that, we studied the area, and those are some of the sort of views for what we thought could be an interesting way of bringing offices, residential, school, landscape together within the same complex. And I think that there is, of course, a value in being such a close proximity and implementing that and creating something which is, is going to be a new version of Copenhagen and Malmo. It's going to be a new version of like Hong Kong and Shenzhen. It's going to be something completely new and extremely attractive. So of course, if we can contribute with our expertise and bring some of those design solutions here, it will be, of course, something we will be very interested in. Thanks a lot.
We actually have you finished early.
You told me to speak up.
Not that much. Anyway, that's very good because we have time for a question. Yeah, kui kellelgi on küsimusi, questions please to the architects. I have a few. I will start, then we'll see. Is there anything? Is there like a specific challenge with this project, where with designing a station in Tallinn or bringing this area together? Is there something that you're really sitting and thinking, we haven't really done this before, this is going to be difficult or interesting or challenging?
Well, as I said, that this is going to be, when we did other project, we tried to connect 2-3 different means of transportation together. I mean, here we're talking about connecting more than that. We have seen in other cities. I was in Malmo last week and I was flying into the Malmo airport. Actually, Copenhagen airport is closer to Malmo than it is to Copenhagen. And it's closer to actually the city center of Malmo by train, whether the Malmo airport itself is not connected, you have to take a bus. So if you think about it, it's just a matter sometimes of regional barriers or bureaucratic systems that are kind of interfering with how these things could be integrated. And I think that was a clear sign to me, okay, that's a city that, even if it's 2 different states, can work together. The whole idea of Malmo, Copenhagen, major urban areas has been there in a long time, but they're still quite behind when it comes down to actually making the old pieces efficient at the same time. I think here the opportunity could be to have Helsinki and Tallinn working in a very parallel level and actually benefiting from both connections at the same time, whether in Malmo or Copenhagen sometimes is a bit of a higher to lower sort of interface. And there is again 3 different ways of transporting. Here could be airports, could be trains, could be the Rail Baltica, could be the whole connection through Helsinki to Asia, as we said. Even the airport of Tallinn could become at a certain point like relevant as much as the Finnish one in terms of connection to Asia. You could distribute facilities, you could share logistics. And this is an opportunity that, to me, if it can be done, would be amazing.
Something that we in Estonia we always like to discuss is the weather, right? And every time someone comes and says, we're designing public space or we are rethinking how people move, and whether we should plan for cars or for bikes or for walking, then people come and say, but look at this weather, like 7 months a year, it's impossible, we should just design boxes with roofs because it's warm there.
I mean, it's not the best day, maybe.
No, it's not.
But I think it's quite relevant the fact, I mean, it was on purpose that I kind of end up finishing on Sweden and Norway projects. But I think that in that sense there is quite a few similarities to that. This whole idea of the sky below or bringing natural sort of references underground is something that of course was very interesting for us to study. If you're talking about the way you experience public space here compared to other countries, I think it's not as dissimilar to Scandinavian countries. In that sense, as we are doing it there, it can easily be done here. And most of the time you see that the new companies that are investing in research about mobilities and public realms is all about well-being. So before there was a big tendency to optimize, like as you said, enclosure spaces, having lifts everywhere and escalators everywhere, because that was allowing more comfort. Nowadays, actually, the latest research are all about how much can you improve the well-being, not only the comfort of the movement itself, but the well-being of people within every built space and every public space. So you try to reduce escalators and lifts. You have them because you need to have them for accessibility, but you actually try to improve different way of people moving in space. So even if we are arguing for now a very high-end, high-speed connection through a tunnel, you still want actually to make sure that you take on board well-being of people, movement of the people itself within the infrastructure, and I think that can be done in a very effective way, and design is part of it.
So, Dalis, any questions from the audience? Yeah, there's a question. Apollo.
Hey.
Yeah, hello. I'm Pavel from the Association of Civil Architects. Yes, it's from the architects' kind of view on this. We actually had a workshop about 3 years ago. The Estonian architects and the Finnish architects discussing the exact topic, the location of the tunnel, let's say, terminals and etc., and how that would work on Tallinn side. And there were some representatives of Harju County, Tallinn City, the Ministry of Economics, etc., etc. And also now reflecting on your map where you had pointed the old town and the business center, etc. So with this workshop, discussing the main key factors or the anchor points of Tallinn, then we realized that it's such an important topic, and it's so important where to locate this first station and then the second station. I mean, it's clear that we need to connect the tunnel, let's say, pedestrian terminals with the rail Baltica terminal, but at the same time, if we think about the local transport systems, if we think about how people move in Tallinn and what is the shape of Tallinn, then it was completely clear that to cut the time the shortest as possible, it is most important that the main first stop that would be really in the center of the Tallinn. So as you had on the map, the business center, the old town, where the tourists move, and also where the locals move, where they live, work, etc. So that's kind of common. Maybe you can give your impression on that.
Well, to be honest, I think that there is, of course, there are pros and cons in every sort of solution. I'm sure there is not only one answer to that. I think that, of course, the proximity here to the airport and to the Rail Baltic station needs to be taken on board. That's something that is very relevant. So there needs to be a connection here that brings the airport, the train station, and the tunnel together, possibly with also all the public transportation to the city center from Uleåvista. And if this can become a sort of catalyst for the regeneration of an international center here, that will be, of course, an opportunity that will be worth investigating. I agree that there are other pros. If you think about having a first station closer, maybe to the city, but we're talking about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, like walk, basically from here to the city center almost. So to a certain degree, you really need to can be arguable that you might need only one station, or maybe two, but I think there has been studies, so I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, so there's only one station, so that's kind of the current plan. And I mean, we have a similar like discussion on the Finnish side. So there we have like 2 stations, so airport, and then actually we still haven't decided exactly where, but currently it's unlikely that we'll go like through downtown area, the railway station in Helsinki. So again, I think that, and also if you look at here, I think the key point is that it needs to integrate with rest of the public transport, and again, makes sense to connect with the Rail Baltica and then our design airport to airport, and we see that both the airports actually are like becoming one and the same. So we have 2 terminals, but it's kind of like the same airport like setup. And then what we also need to take into account is that we can expect both Helsinki area and Tallinn area to grow significantly. So if you look at what has happened in, for example, Stockholm, that the growth currently is happening in kind of like 8 different sectors. And I think that this is something that, again, when we take a few steps back and we look at both like Helsinki and Tallinn, and we look at that as kind of one metropolitan area, we need to plan also for kind of like what will happen like in the 30s and the 40s. And it's not static, like what is the situation currently. I mean, in Helsinki we can't build downtown. Tallinn, I think that people would get a bit upset if we said, okay, we're going to have massive construction in like the old town. We all know that that's not going to happen. So again, currently the plan is for 4 stations in total. The reason why we want to minimize the number of stations is again speed, so that it's actually this fast connection between, and then we plug into the public transport in all forms and shapes, and that will also evolve like in both cities. So again, we'll see a big change in how people move around like in the next 10 years. So again, thinking a bit like ahead. So we really think that it's going to be much less about, for example, cars, and I think that people will walk and actually one thing about the climate, that we have the same thing in Finland and Estonia always, oh, but why would anybody come here? I mean, just look outside. But the thing is that there are very few places that have kind of like ideal climate. I mean, there's, and we actually interviewed a whole bunch of Indian people living in Finland, so students and people who've been there for a bit longer, and what was very interesting and totally unexpected that we asked them, so what's the best thing about like living here? And most of them said actually the climate, which is like not what a Finnish or a Estonian person would expect, but it's again that you have like different seasons, so it's not always like 50 degrees and sunshine like in Dubai. Okay, it's not always like that in Dubai, but big part of the year, or go to Singapore, it's hot and humid every day, so you don't really want to be outside. So it's kind of like different, and of course London, as an example, it's not perfect climate, and the problem with London and some of these places is that the buildings are typically not like very good, so it's when it's cold outside, it's also cold inside. So I always say that in Finland, and I think it's true here in Estonia as well, we have the best indoor climate anywhere in the planet.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, and good luck. And as I mentioned, he's available for interviews and questions later. So we will move on, and we will now move on to the law side of things, and I will invite on the stage Paul Jürna from Sorainen Law Office. Kas sa muidu töötas või? On jah, me ise sind ei kuuleta.
Ma kõigepealt küsiksin, et kui paljud siin räägivad eesti keelt? Tõsta käsi. Kus eesti keelt? Ma teeks niimoodi, et ma kõigepealt teen lühikese ülevaate inglise keeles ja siis ma mingisugustest asjadest räägiksin natuke põhjalikumalt eesti keeles. Right. So first up, I'll do a sort of short update where we are in English, and then there are some things I would talk more in depth in Estonia. I hope that's okay. So, where we are. From the legal process side, there are two important processes in Finland and two important processes in Estonia. So the two important processes in Finland are the regional plan, which is something that encompasses Helsinki and the Uusimaa region as a whole. And this is actually already in the final stages. We are expecting this regional plan to be adopted either in spring or in fall this year. So this will be in place this year. Then the other thing what is important in Finland, what needs to happen, is the environmental impact assessment. Here, the situation is so that the nature studies themselves, that are of course a big part of environmental impact assessment, have been ongoing for a year now, and are actually those two are in the final stages. The environment impact assessment program, you see, it involves two phases. The program is finalized, it's ready to be published. We hope that we can move forward with publishing of this in maybe even in the coming days. Certainly we hope that it's a matter of a couple of weeks. Now, if you look at from the Estonian side, what is needed to get this going is we need a superficies license. We submitted an application to obtain the superficies license last year on the 3rd of December. This is in this initiation phase. And then the other thing what we need is this national designated detail plan. That too, we submitted the application on the 3rd of December last year. It is in the initiation phase. We understand that the authorities processing this have received some input from the other authorities and the ministries, and we are waiting for that feedback. Certainly from our side, once we get that, we will provide whatever additional information is required for it as soon as possible. According to the law, the government has to decide on initiating this planning process within 90 days from submitting the application. Looking at the calendar, that means that this government has to decide something at the latest, I think it's 28th of February. So we are expecting some news from there too. So this is the brief where we are, just, and I'll switch to Estonian now. Nüüd, vaadates neid protsesse, nüüd mõned asjad, mis on olulised, eriti arvestades, et mis vestlus ka Eesti meedias toimub, siis üks oluline aspekt, mis on vaja aru saada, on see, et see meie projekti protsessid ei ole mingisugune eraldi võetav asi, mis nagu kuskilt kukkus lihtsalt ja me alustasime nullist. See tegelikult põhineb tööle, mida on tegelikult tehtud juba aastaid. Tegelikult kõige esimene Tallinn-Helsingi tunneli mingisugune töö oli vist aastal 1994, kui ma õigesti mäletan. Aga see on tegelikult tehtud mitu aastat päris palju tööd nende asjade uurimiseks. Ja need meie taotlused ja see, mida meie teeme, kõik põhineb sellel eelneval tööl. Et vahest öeldakse meile, et kuidas te nüüd tulite kuskilt metsast ja nüüd kohe tahate hakata igasugust lubasid ja muid asju saama. See ei ole nii, siin on mitme aasta pikkune töö, mis on enne meid toimunud. me lihtsalt jätkame seda tööd, mida teised on juba teinud, siis Talsinki Fix, FinEst link, need projektid on tänaseks läbi. Nüüd on vaja edasi minna. See järgmine samm, ükskõik kes seda projekti edasi teeb, on need samad planeeringud, on need samad loodusuuringud, mis on vaja palju põhjalikumalt teha, kui need seni on tehtud. Ja see on see, millega meil on vaja edasi minna. Samamoodi nüüd ükski otsus, mida täna saab teha, näiteks see sama riigi eriplaneeringu algatamise otsus. See lõppkokkuvõttes on ainult ühe protsessi algatamise otsus. Tegemist on ühe osaga suuremast tervikust. Selle otsusega ei saa ära otsustada seda, et missugune tunnel tuleb ja kuidas ja kes selle teeb ja nii edasi. See on lihtsalt üks osa tervikust protsessi, et see on tähtis otsus, aga seda ei maksa ka nagu ületähtsustada. Me vahest näeme, et kuna nüüd erinevalt Soomes need protsessid Eestis kipuvad väga poliitiliseks minema, siis meil on vaja võtta samm tagasi ja saada aru, et see on lihtsalt üks osa loomulikust planeeringuprotsessist. Ja selleks, et nüüd Eestis saaks toimuda selline avalikkuse kaasamine ja selline avalikkuse arvamuste arvestamine, nii nagu seadus seda ette näeb ja nii nagu meie sooviksime seda teha, see eeldab seda, et ka need juriidilised protsessid peaksid algama võimalikult ruttu. Sest kui nendega asi venib, siis me näeme, et tegelikult ju see planeerimine, projekteerimine, kõik see toimub kogu aeg edasi. Ja mida aeg edasi, seda vähem on tegelikult võimalust hakata arvestama siis avalikkuse soovide, arvamuste, seisukohtadega. Seetõttu iseenesest, mis on täna oluline, on see, et Eestis algaks sisuline diskussioon selle üle, et nagu Peeter alguses ütles, et see tunnel on üks tükk mingisugusest suuremast tervikust. Suurem tervik on Helsingi-Tallinna kaksiklinn, Eesti-Soome koostöö. Siin on palju suuremad mõõtmed, mida tegelikult oleks vaja hakata arvestama, mis vajaksid arutelu. Samamoodi ka nüüd sellised praktilised küsimused, et kus kohas see jaam peaks olema, mis tema transpordiühendused on, missugune ta peaks välja nägema ja nii edasi, nii edasi. Kõik need on asjad, millest oleks tegelikult täna vaja hakata arutama, sellepärast, et see on meil kohe ees. Meil on vaja seda juriidilist protsessi, et seda arutelu teha nii, nagu seadus seda ette näeb. Seetõttu me väga loodame, et need juriidilised protsessid saaksid võimalikult kiiresti alata. Hetkel ei ole meie käes, me lihtsalt ootame muuhulgas siis valitsuse seisukohta. Aga kui need protsessid on alanud ja loodetavasti nad algavad õige pea, nad võivad õige pea alata ja kui nad seda teevad, siis kõik need küsimused vajavad lahendamist. Ja loomulikult meie eesmärk on, et avalikkus selles aktiivselt osaleks. Ja omalt poolt me teeme kõik selleks, et see oleks ka võimalik. Nüüd, need järgmised sammud Eestis, nagu ma enne ütlesin, et kui me nüüd vaatame seda nüüd kitsamalt, seda meie protsessi, siis me oleme ette valmistanud need taotlused, me oleme ette valmistanud hulga muudki materjali, muuhulgas me oleme ka Eesti jaoks valmistanud ette keskkonnamõjude hindamise programmi, mis on viimistlemisel. Me oleme täna selles algatusfaasis. Nagu öeldud, me loodame, et me jõuame sellest algatusfaasist siin varsti edasi, nii et me saaksime Eestis minna edasi keskkonnamõjude hindamisega ja siis selles riigi eriplaneeringu protsessis on vaja edasi minna konsultandi valimisega. Aga jah. See on nüüd väljavõtteid meie taotlustest. Ehk täna me sooviksime täpsemalt uurida 4 trassi alternatiivi Eestis. See muuhulgas hõlmaks endast 3 võimalikku Eesti tehissaare asukohta. See on ka üks diskussioon, mida seal tehissaare peaks olema, kuidas seda võiks ära kasutada. Terve hulk huvitavaid küsimusi, mis vajavad arutelu. Ja nagu öeldud, see nüüd meie arvates see kõige optimaalsem lahendus näeks välja nii, et siin Ülemistel oleks umbes 50 meetri sügavusel nüüd see Eesti lõppjaam vähemalt reisijatele. Selle suurus on umbes selline. Ja nüüd siin on terve hulk asju, mida saab arutada ja mõelda, kuidas see olema peaks. Aga see on minu poolt kõik.
Aitäh! Meil on veel ka natuke aega, we have some time. Kui on küsimusi juristidele, siis praegu on aeg küsida. Ja 2 küsimust sealt enne.
Ja, et kui võtta arvesse kõiki neid lubade taotlemisi ja planeeringuid ja kogu seda protsessi, et võtab üks ju kaua aega tõenäoliselt, siis selles kontekstis, kuidas te hindate, kas on võimalik valmis saada tunnel 2024, kui Peeter Vesterkoga räägib?
Selles nüüd ajaraamides me kõik teame, et on terve hulk näiteid sellest, kuidas on asjad halvasti läinud ja võtnud oluliselt kauem aega, kui on loodetud. See on selge, see on võimalik, et läheb halvasti. Meie nüüd oleme vaatanud kõigepealt rahvusvahelised mudeleid, me vaatasime, kui kaua läks selle Inglise ja Prantsusmaa tunneli sama etapiga, millest meie räägime. Seal on erinevaid asju, mida tehti, aga kui me räägime täpselt sellest, mida meie teeme, või kui me vaatasime Öresundi seda sillaprojekti, siis seal toimusid planeerimine ja loamenetlus selles ajakavas, millest meie räägime. Samamoodi me teame, et loodusuuringud on võimalik teha aastaga. Me teame, et need protsessid ka juriidilise poole pealt on võimalik saada umbes 1,5 aastaga tehtud. Aga see muidugi eeldab seda, et neid käsitletakse prioriteetsena, et asjad ei jää laua peale seisma, et siis, kui me neid taotlusi teeme, neid menetletakse ja kui me küsime mingid arvamusi, näiteks protsessid eeldavad, et me peame sama arvamust küsima järjest 3-4 kordagi vahest, siis on arusaadav, et selle esimese arvamuse jaoks on vaja nagu tööd teha, et see välja kujundada, selle peale kulub aega. Aga kui me seda 3. ja 4. küsime, siis seal see oluline vahe ongi, et kas kasutatakse kogu aeg ära, mis seadus võimaldab, või käsitletakse asja prioriteetsena ja need samad vastused, mida me korduvalt peame küsima, tulevad kohe. Kui nii tehtakse, siis me jõuame samasse ajakavasse, mis siis seal Inglismaal ja Prantsusmaal suudeti teha, mida suudeti teha Rootsis ja Taanis ja ma olen täiesti veendunud, mida suudetakse teha Soomes. Nii et eks see asi on nüüd meist endast kinni, et kas me suudame seda või ei suuda. Mingit põhjust, miks me ei suudaks, ma ei tea, et jah, nagu öeldud, neid halbu näiteid on, aga miks mitte teha hästi.
See taga veel. Et see on küll tehnoloogiline küsimus, aga kuivõrd ühte tehnoloogilist parameetrit mainisite selle lõppjaama puhul, siis kas see asjaolu, et see saab olema 50 meetri sügavusel maa all, tähendab seda, et liiklus saab olema tsirkuleeriv, mitte transiitne?
No nüüd on liiga keeruline küsimus juristile.
Et kuivõrd see praegune peatus, ma olen Šveika Ismailov Eestimaa vahel, kuivõrd praeguse peatuse asukoht on arvestatud olema ka ühendatud Rail Balticuga, siis kuivõrd te näete, et see protsess võib jääda venima, kuna me näeme, et Rail Balticu protsess on tegelikult takerdunud, seal on väga palju erinevaid juriidilisi, mis on kas Tallinna-Helsingi tunnel võib jääda olemata tänu sellele Rail Balticu protsessi venimisele?
No need protsessid ei ole omavahel seotud. Selle tunneli on võimalik ehitada ka nii, et kui Rail Balticuga peakski venima, see tunnel on võimalik ikka valmis teha. Et selles mõttes mingisugust juriidilist põhjust või ka ma ei näe ka mingit tehnilist põhjust, miks nad üksteise taha peaksid jääma, ei ole. Et loomulikult, nagu ka Peeter ütles, et meie soov oleks, et Rail Baltic liigub edasi ka selles ajakavas ja et need on võimalik ühendada ja siis kokku tuleb sellest üks väga võimas asi.
Peeter Vesterpakk küll lahkus, kommenteerib lihtsalt lõpuni oma mõtte, et ma arvan, et Tallinna-Helsingi tunnel ja kaksiklinna on parim asi, mis üldse meie piirkonnaga juhtuda saab. Ma arvan, et see on tohutu muutus nii elukvaliteedi, mis iganes majanduskvaliteedi mõttes, aga lihtsalt küsimus ongi selles, et kas me mõtleme nagu Tallinnast ja kogu sellest piirkonnast ja linnalinnadest ka läbi või mitte. Et tegelikult vajaks see väga laia diskussiooni ja linnaplaneerimist, et kuidas see kogu seda piirkonda, selle tunneli paigutus ja see peajaga paigutus nagu muudab ja kuidas see mõjutab, sest ma olen ise elanud ja töötanud Kopenhaagenis ja ma olen väga hästi kursis sellega, kuidas nende silla/tunneli projekt läks ja kuidas siis läbi Öörestad pidi liikuma selleks, et Malmösse jõuda. Et me võiksime lihtsalt korra ka mõelda ja täpselt läbi analüüsida Tallinna ja Eesti olukorra.
Tervitan. See ongi see, miks me seda üritust tahtsime korraldada, et see arutelu oleks.
Võtame siit viimase küsimuse, mis siin praegu aega otsab.
Aivar Jääski Rail Baltic AS, et ma tahaks kommenteerida, et Rail Baltic ei ole takerdanud, et projekteerimisprotsess on käimas, et kohe-kohe valime välja projekteerija ja töö läheb lahti. Aga ja üks eeldus sellele tunnelile meie arusaamist mööda saab ikkagi olema Rail Baltic, et need reisijate massid, mida Rail Baltica tooks selle tunneli jaoks, oleks suur eeldus ja kasu. Aga mul on üks küsimus ka, et kas praegusel hetkel siis võib öelda, et see projekt, mida Soome valitsus koos Eesti transpordiministeeriumiga uuris, et see on nüüd teie poolt üle võetud, et seal ei ole enam kahte tunneliprojekti, et seal on nüüd üks projekt, mida teie juhite. Ja kas siis selle eeldusega, et seal on üks projekt, tulevad ka nii-öelda Euroopa Liidu toetused teile, kas te nendega arvestate või neid välistate täielikult?
Selles suhtes, et Rail Baltic ja see tunnel kindlasti üksteist toetavad ja on üksteisele kasulikud, et seal ei ole nagu mingit küsimuski lihtsalt. Et kas ta tehniliselt on eeldus ja kas ta juriidiliselt on eeldus, ei ole. Et see, kas ta majanduslikult on eeldus, selle lõpuks otsustab investor. Et kas ta näeb, et see on, aga see selleks. Nüüd nende projektidega ma võib-olla läheks. Nüüd see FinEst link on meil, ma sellepärast just panin ta siia sellele, et oleks aru saada, kus ta meil siin on. Et ta oli nüüd feasibility study, ma ei tea, kuidas ta eesti keeles on. Tasuvusanalüüs, mis on tehtud, mis on tänaseks valmis ja see meie projekt põhineb sellel. Me oleme väga palju informatsiooni, mida me kasutame just sellest FinEst lingi projektist saanud. Et nagu ma enne ütlesin, et meie projekt täna ei oleks sellisel kujul mõeldav ilma neid varasemaid projekte. Seega, et nüüd, meie nüüd teeme sealt edasi, et tänaseks see FinEst link projekt on lõppenud. Otseselt meie ei eelda, et riik või Euroopa Liit meie projekti toetaks. See on teretulnud, aga see ei ole eeldus. Seda ei ole üles ehitud selle, me ei oota mingisugust Euroopa Liidu rahastusotsust kuskilt. Me lähme edasi sellest hoolimata, mis seal tuleb, juhul kui see peaks tulema või see kõik aitab, ega meil selle vastu midagi ei ole. Nüüd, noh, mis sellest valitsustevahelisest projektist edasi saab, noh, seda ei ole mina õige inimene ütlema, aga siin ümber on ju terve hulk asju, mis vajavad lahendamist ja arutamist ja nii edasi, sama kuidas Rail Baltic ühendab, kuidas need teised, et seega noh, me eeldame ja ootame, et riikide vahel jätkub ka koostöö kõikide nende küsimustega, millega meie ei saa tegeleda. Meie saame tegeleda selle tunneliga, me ehitame selle tunneli, aga nagu öeldud, see on üks osa millestki suuremast. See suurem eeldab siis ka riikide poolset tegutsemist.
Aitäh, meie aeg on läbi. Sinu aeg on läbi. Ma tean, et sa pead ära minema. Aitäh. So now we go on and we will move to the nature and the environmental impact question. So, Toomas Kallo. Tiim. Vaata seda poolt, palun.
Yes, good morning. I'm Toomas Kallo, and I'm from the group of environmental consultants who are supporting now all the project from the side of environmental activities. And we've been working on this with a number of companies from Estonian side, and I'm preparing the different materials to be launched, the environmental impact assessment, as soon as all the preparatory planning works and permit processes have gone to the point when the environmental impact assessment actually can be started. So it means that when we can't start it before the official processes has been started. I'm slightly actually puzzled as well, so shall I continue in Estonia or is it deep interest in English? I can continue in English as well, but what's your general understanding?
English, please.
English, please, okay. Then I'll continue. Actually, the slides are prepared by my colleague, and that's why I stressed that it's a group of companies. So I'm presenting the company called Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian Environment. Long name, but we are abbreviating it to ELLE. And as the name suggests, we are operating in different countries in the Baltics and being involved in different large infrastructure projects, environmental assessments as well. But these slides are prepared by my good colleague who is fortunately on a holiday now, and we showed the same slightly modified now slides a couple of weeks ago in the ministry to introduce the project stage to them as well. So I'll go quickly. The slides are unfortunately in Estonian, but then it's we can kill the two flies at once, and the explanation will be I will giving in Estonian. Briefly about I will basically skip the planned activities because that's the introduction have been made already. I'm just for reminder showing the slide which kind of alternatives are on the table now for the tunnel. And when we speak of those alternatives, we have 4 alternative routes. From which one the blue dotted line is the alternative which is evaluated already, so we don't pay so much attention. I wouldn't say that we don't deal with that at all, but we will definitely use it during the environmental impact assessment, or it depends who will assess that. But the other ones, the yellow, green and the pink ones are the new routes which will be evaluated from technical point of view and also from the environmental point of view. And the main studies, what I'm talking today very briefly to make the introduction is the different studies which are prerequisites for the environmental assessment. And I made the red one of the study whom the experts will talk by themselves and very briefly give the overview of the rest of 6. First, the waves, currents and sediments study which is planned, and here we have the studies in two main parts. So it's about the currents and then the impact of currents to the bottom sediments. And bottom sediments, of course, are related also not to the operational stage of the impact of the activity, but also the construction time. And then there are also the studies on the impact of waves, how those are impacting, for example, the potential island with what will be built during the construction period. Then the second compound is what we have is the study of the bottom habitats, and there have been several studies carried out before, and with a red circle or not circle, you'll see the areas which are potentially selected now for the islands. I'll show you the next, on the next slide there is a description of the potential study areas, and actually one of the tasks to the specialists who will study these bottom habitats is different radiuses from the potential island. So this will be one of the first tasks to find which area should be studied, and then all the 3 sites will be studies will be carried out. And there the methodology is proposed as sonar studies, then video survey, and then getting the samples of the bottom habitats, bottom species, and then dealing with the modeling. And I did put here also as I mentioned, the selection of the site and the extent from the area, what should be studied, to the slide as well. The next bigger study concerns the fishery, the fish population, and there are some studies carried out before, but not so much in the area where the possible island will be located. So this study should be carried out, but here the hint is simply that there is certain methodology available. It's tested and it's carried out, and the experts who will do the job know what they do. Briefly, quite specific overview of what kind of fish it is at the moment there, and it's Baltic sprat, if I'm not mistaken, and there are quite specific terms for this, but STNs know what the aim is. And this is presumption to the studies that we don't see any potential valuable species there at the moment, but of course the study itself will find out what it really is. And then coming from bottom to the surface, the study of the birds, ornithologists will carry out the study. This is one of the studies which, to my understanding, has started already, and it's possible to use also in combination with previous studies which have been carried out for the same purpose. There is some extension of the existing studies and the other similar studies carried out in Estonian waters. And here you simply can see the area and the routes from where the study from the ships will be carried out. Yes, this is a brief overview of study of bird species. Digitalization, data processing, and then contribution to the EIA report. Yes, the study will reveal which kind of species can be detected in the area, and what the approximate sizes of that species. Then we have the study also of marine mammals, and again you can see on this slide where and what kind of sites are selected. Again, in my understanding, there have been some studies carried out already, but not on these shallow parts. So this will be additionally carried out, and there is also agreement with the bird specialists that they will additionally observe not only the birds but also see where the seeds are. So in combination we will get more information on those populations, both the mammals and the birds. That basically was about the studies which are concerning the marine area, but one part of the potential impact will be also from the place where the tunnel will come up to the land here, and maybe that's even not the biggest impact, but the impact will be from the service tunnels and the tunnels where during the construction period when the oldest materials will be carried out from the tunnel. So there should be some studies carried out on these land-based habitats, both plants and animals as well. So this is also initiated the study. That's briefly overview of all the studies from my side. Any questions?
No? Well, the time forces us to move forward.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. And so we have a couple of more presentations now. Two gentlemen here, please, Andres Marandi and Mika Räisänen, and we are talking about geology.
Okay, thank you. We started here with a really nice vision and overview, and now we are getting more to the details, and as you know, the devil is in the details. So we are here together. I'm from the Estonian Geological Survey, and here is my colleague from Finland, from the Geological Survey of Finland, Mika. Yeah. So we agreed that I will make a short presentation concerning mostly the geology of Estonia, because we are sitting here in Estonia at the moment. And if Mika finds something that he would like to add, then he will add something. Okay? So I just called my presentation The Tunnel and the Geology in Estonia. And if we speak about the general differences between the geology in Finland and in Estonia, then as the people like the nice and colorful pictures, then you see that in the right side, whereas the Finland, then it's a nice and pink. But if you go to the Estonia, then you have the different colors, which means you have the different geological layers. And if we want to make a tunnel there, then the tunnel has to go through all these layers. And it's not only the geology, but it's also the water use, aquifers, and then some other processes which we have to think about it. So it's a little bit more complicated in Estonia. At least we think so, and I think maybe Mika also agrees with this one. These pictures are known already actually from this feasibility study which were done during the Interreg program. We have done previously something already. We have quite a lot of information from the boreholes from the mainland and from the islands. These are these blue and the red dots on the map. And we also have done some geophysical studies in the shore area, which are these red lines. So we have a slight understanding what's happening there. But as you see, there are no drill holes actually inside or in the sea area, which means that everything we know is from the geophysics, and we haven't seen it really. And for the geologist, yes, we know it, there is a high probability it's like this, but for sure, no, we don't know it. So therefore we need some additional geological investigations in these areas. And going into the further details, so according to this application which was done to our government, then we already know something about the lines where the tunnel might go. And we also know that close to our airport area, there will be another, I don't know, exit area, or how to call it. where they basically have to make a vertical shaft, which is going down to that, as we saw it from the previous presentation, something to the depth of 50 meters or so. So there are a few questions which we have to address if we do the geological investigations. First, the geology. Based on this geology, we can actually start deciding which one of those 3 lines are the best one, or which one is the best one. Or let's say we can do some kind of site selection already. Then we have some more specific studies which we have to before, for example, how this tunneling affects the groundwater resources during the tunneling process and also afterwards, if there will be some effects also later. Then we have this exit area close to the Ülemiste, so we have to think about how this might affect, or if this affects also the Lake Ülemiste. We must know much more about the geology in this area. And in this map you see a lot of these blue dots, which are actually the water wells. Yeah, and we have a kind of new legal situation now that our legal basically situation is flat, or all the legislation is flat, it's on the ground. And we haven't specified how deep does it go. To the center of the earth, 50 meters, 100 meters. And all these wells, they have a 10 to 50 meter, or even some of them maybe 200 meter protection zones. And if you look at these different lines, then these are the lines where the tunnel might go. So we also have to face it with a new legislation, or with the new problems in the legislation, which we have to cope later. So based on all those things, together with the Finnish colleagues, we have put together quite a long plan for the geological survey. Here is only just a couple of points, or the main things, as I don't have a time to go into details, but starting or thinking about the geology, we could do it in 2 ways. Yeah, we could do the full geological survey, which is hundreds of drill holes, a couple of millions euros here and there, it's no question. But instead we thought that we can do it a little bit different. So we have 2 stages basically. The first one is the preliminary stage, where we have to work through or go through all the existing material, the old drill holes, the data, and there the main issue would be the verifying this data. And if we can go all these old data and then maybe do some, maybe a little bit also the sampling from the old drill cores, so the result of these preliminary studies would be the conceptual 3D model of this area. And based on that, we can already start choosing which of these lines will be the most suitable. And after that, if we know this one, then we can go to the more specified geological studies already, and then we start already in these areas more specified geophysical studies, also the drilling, onshore, offshore drilling. We have to do some geophysics also onshore, because we have some special areas which we call the buried valleys, which are different from the typical geology in the area, and we have to delineate these things which we don't know. And last but not least, one of these, or maybe even one of the most important things, because I'm a hydrogeologist myself, is the groundwater modeling. We have to build up the groundwater model to assess the effects on these aquifers and the groundwater. And later, with a close cooperation with the developers and also the companies who start really the tunneling, we need to go through the scenarios, how these things can affect the underground and also the aquifers. And I think, not going to the details, it's pretty much all. And if Mika has to add something.
Yeah, thanks, Andres. Nothing really to add, just
cooperation, what we have been doing with EGT and GTK. It's we are sharing the information very openly and seeing sort of the conceptual model what shows how to go deeper. But as Anders was explaining, it's no use to start drilling, but first we have to do the gathering all the data, and that phase is currently ongoing. And I hope that we can really start going into this work very soon. But the summer is coming, so we are sort of want to do it, start it very fast, because it's always when you're handling with the data, with the old data, it's very time consuming. You will save a lot of money because then you can sort of do the drilling in the right locations, but the old data is very valuable, but it takes time to evaluate the data. But anyhow, we'll see now after we have done sort of a model what needs to be investigated. Now we have to negotiate with the clients and what is reality, what we will start doing. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Kui on küsimusi, siis võtame hiljem, sest teeme ürituse viimase ettekande ära. So, is Gustav Aldonen also here? I didn't meet you before. Oh, okay. Welcome on stage. Gustav is going to tell us about an app.
The announcement section. So, is it on? All right. So I usually get to do the fun stuff, so doing the announcement. So this time we talk about two new things. Financial data. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that, but there's plenty of that available on the website. So go and explore finestbayarea.online. There's all sorts of calculations and kind of compilations of the material we have done that's out there, and more will come as we do more of the stuff. The other kind of news is that we have now a tunnel app available. It's in both of the main app stores out there. There's still not that much content, but as we start to use the app with the audience, so all of you basically, we start to collect lots of information, questions, answers, ideas, everything like that. So this is mainly for engaging with the stakeholders, so all of us related to the application. And there's basically the team of people you have heard talking about the project over the course of the last year or year and a half. More or less the experts who are also responsible for making and giving the answers. So that's kind of a very, very short update and announcement section. And I'm going to hand over to Kim from Trimble, because Trimble wanted to say a few words.
Yes, thank you.
I don't have slides. I always do live demos when I do presentations. Let's see if it works. First problem is connecting the Mac, but otherwise. So how many of you know Trimble or Tekla by name? Okay, I still have a bit of work to do then, so good. Fingers crossed, the most hard part, getting the display to show. If that is done, then everything is great. Nothing? Okay, great. Very small, but let's see. So anyway, so Trimble has been involved in this project since the couple of days after Peter came up with the great idea 2.5 years ago. And so we've been involved in all kinds of hackathons and so on. Here's one example modeling we did, or Vira did.
You need to get you the new pictures.
Yeah. This is 2.5 years old stuff, but what I'm showing off here is actually a couple of things. So the hackathon part of things, modeling done in SketchUp, so you might recognize this area. This is a very old, but like the initial draft of things. Also been helping out with live streaming, so this is really meta. I'm watching myself presenting. Like, it's a 30-second delay, so if I mess something up, we can turn off the stream. So, yeah, so we've been in this as a partner, so you'll find some information about Trimble. Trimble as a company, 11,000 employees, and we're active in a lot of different industries. So we do building and construction, transportation, agriculture, utilities, and so on. And when I'm thinking about it, so I think if agriculture doesn't have anything to do with this, but actually what Peter told us this morning, a self-sustained island, so it's very much about agriculture as well. Another connection point, so I have a couple of colleagues with me today, maybe just briefly. Ray Bagley from Trimble Connect. So Trimble Connect was what we announced about a year ago, that's available for collaboration in this project. So Ray is leading that effort in Trimble. And then I have Ragnar Westman with me, hopefully somewhere.
I think he just stepped out.
He just stepped out when I was presenting. Anyway, he's the father of Technostructures, one of the our main products that we've created in Finland, and actually the reason that we are here today as Trimble and Tekla. And I saw this mentioned in the architecture presentation, and that was actually modeled. The BIM model was done as a student project, this long bridge in Taiwan. So I found that on the Tekla BIM Awards 2018. And then we're also, it's not just above ground, but it's also below ground. So a lot of the metro station in the Helsinki area have been designed by our partners. So we can see Insinärit, who is one of the consortium members, that did the Lauttasaari metro station, and Tanot Ruoholahti. And then, yeah, Trimble Connect and Trimble World. But anyway, I think that's it. Just kind of, we are going to continue this and putting more effort, and I'm really happy to see how this has progressed.
Connected. Maybe you can go to the FinEst Bay Area webpage. You haven't opened that.
Yes, it's over here.
Just remember it wasn't. Karolina, where did we have the, because we have the full environmental impact assessment material published in Finnish, but now we have the English language version as well.
Yes, it's found online /64 or something. If you go to the about. Or not media, sorry, media.
Okay.
Media. And then that's the one, the upper one.
So the full Finnish environmental impact assessment material now also available for everyone to view. Maybe interesting reading.
Yeah, and I think that and we'll also have it available in like all required languages. So it will be in Estonian and a few other languages as well. But the whole idea that what we wanted to do was to make it like public as soon as we could, so we can have a discussion around the whole like environmental impact and everything before kind of like the official process kicks in. So we want to really make sure that everybody has a chance to kind of like engage. And the tunnel app that Gustav was talking about, that is actually what we use for a lot of that engagement and interaction. So it's super important that yeah, people can be part of this, and that's why it's been great to see that every month or every monthly meeting we have more people. So expect, you know, like this room to be like way too small for the next like monthly meeting in Tallinn that we'll have in April, I guess now, because we have March in Helsinki. So anyway, yeah, check out, you know, like the site. There's a lot of material, and if you don't find material that you're looking for, let us know. So we just actually last week put in all these like financial models and numbers and all that. So if you're into kind of like crunching numbers, you'll find that. And if there's something missing, you can ask Otso, who is sitting there. So he's our like chief economist. So he's been building all the economic models that we used in our like fundraising and everything. So if you need anything, let us know. And yeah, I guess we're like.
We need to run shortly.
We need to run shortly.
Yeah,
we still have a few minutes. So, I mean, we can still, if there are like still some questions or comments, feel free. And I know we're like Estonians and Finns, so typically we don't ask too many questions. But yeah, okay.
Just thinking about this environmental impact. Estonia is a flat land. I mean, really, no hills at all, almost no hills.
Yeah, I would say the same about Finland. But okay, we have like some time.
Yeah. But then I was thinking nowadays we talk about not about flooding and how they're gonna the sea level will rise in the future.
Yeah.
And all these nice pictures about islands and the thinking about this harbor area is really flat. It's in the sea. I mean, everything is in the sea level.
Yeah. So if you look at the island design, maybe it doesn't come across like in video and all that, but we have actually it's at least like 10 meters above, and I think that okay, then if the sea level rises like more than 10 meters, we're like not going to be around anyway. So I think that of course we need to take the rising sea level into account in like all the designs. So for the island, that's there. For the station areas, to a big extent,
it's
also
actually
not like there.
embedded in the EIA process as well, and when we start to construct, we need to think about these things in quite a lot of detail. And I think we have excellent architects available who can help us to find.
When you talk about this Malmö Dockan, which is the new part of Malmö where they have built up the startup communities, and there is the bridge going over the Sunde to Copenhagen. In Malmö Dockan there is a huge problem of flooding, and it's a new area. It's a really new area.
One example.
Yeah, so we can go there and say that actually you might want to consider moving to a safer like space.
One example we've used is the Jätkäsaari area in Helsinki. That's where the ferries go, and I think that's a good example of how this artificial island would also be built. There's no flooding problem there, so that's a very solid ground.
But one thing also, I mean, again, that question, like all of these questions, but one thing that I think is very important and what I like about now making this tunnel happen is that even before we poured like a single meter or built a single meter of tunnel, we're already getting a lot more dialogue between Finland and Estonia happen. So there's no reason not to do that. And I think that what is very important, I mean, again, as I said, the tunnel is like a little detail in the end. I mean, we need to look at what it enables us to do. And already, I mean, we're seeing the gravity work, because now we have companies like Boeing, Vinci, Acciona, many of these like very big global construction companies that are contacting us, and they are very interested in being part of the project. And most of these guys couldn't care less. I mean, okay, it's like Northern Europe, and okay, how many people are you again, and like what is the size of the project? So I think that it's again one example of what we're able to do. That now there is a way to attract interest, and more than interest, we can also then attract talent, and people will actually move here from Malmö because who would like to live in a flooded area. So I think that it's very important to do this. And one thing that I think is like an analogy to what we're doing with the tunnel. So if you look at what happened with the energy market, and we were talking about that last time, I was actually not here in Tallinn but in Tartu, and we had discussion about Estlink, so the power cable that connected Estonia and Finland and the energy markets. And there was a big concern when the first cable was built that but now all of this cheap energy will come to Finland from Estonia, and it's not going to be worth making any energy in Finland because it's so much cheaper here. But what has actually happened is that now some days the energy flows from Estonia to Finland, some days it flows from Finland to Estonia, and guess what? Same price. Because now we have like the cable connecting, and of course in any market what happens is that then the price becomes the same because it's the same market. So the tunnel is a little bit like the Estlink, but it's for like people and services and for like everything. So we will see much bigger like integration and harmonization happen. So look at property prices, look at salaries, look at taxes, look at like any of these things that we had this big concern in Finland when Estonia joined the EU that all the Estonians will move to Finland and we need to have special rules so that it doesn't happen. And of course, I mean, guess what? Not all Estonians live in Finland and not all Finns live in Estonia. So I think that we will probably see more of this kind of like interaction and all of that, but it's typically doesn't happen the way some people are like running around scared that everybody will come here or to Helsinki. But I think that we need to start thinking about these things, and we have like many years to do that. But it's not like it shouldn't come as a surprise to people that wow, now we have a tunnel and it's like 20 minutes and the prices are different or things are different. They will become more similar, and we need to kind of like start thinking ahead. And that's why again like the integration with the public transport, I think that is like trivial. That's something that we need to do in any case, and that's easy to understand, but it's all of these other things that we really need to start taking seriously and start thinking about, and we need to look at it kind of like more at the opportunities rather than all the problems and threats, because it's very easy to paint all of these the world will end tomorrow kind of like attitude. But I think that this will open up a lot of new possibilities for like people on both sides, and I think that's something that's like super important. But yeah, anyway, so I think we'll just like wrap up here. We'll be back, okay, we have the monthly meetings, but we're here like many times a month, and next monthly meeting will be in Helsinki. So of course, more than welcome to get on the ferry and come over and join us there. So I think that we want to see more of that kind of like in the future, that more Finnish people coming here, more Estonian people coming to the monthly meetings in Helsinki. So we haven't fixed a date for it yet, but we'll do that soon, and you'll find it on the finestbayarea.online. So that's a good place to see what's kind of like going on. And as I said, if there's some information that you can't find there, let us know and we'll try to figure it out. But yeah, thanks a lot for coming, and we'll call it a day here, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.